Hey y'all, here to talk about the final episode of Industry Season 3. Specifically about Yasmin, played by Marisa Abella, and Robert, played by Harry Lottie. The final two episodes, for me, the escape from the madness and the deceit and the failing bank firm and all that stuff, which is great, but a bit, sensational at times, was this love story between Robert and Yasmin. And I say that because, one of the most beautiful things about it is that they take this trip up to, I guess it's Wales, where Robert is getting involved with a pharmaceutical company backed by Henry, played by the guy who plays Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, who had a prior relationship with Yasmin. So it's all very kind of incestual in a way. But one thing that's great about it is that Robert finally envisions a future for himself that is backed by the same crazy world that him and Yasmin inhabit in their life as bankers, but is away from all of it. So he's going to move to California, he's going to have a fresh start. At this point, he has also sort of given up, or at least no longer is tormented by Yasmin as viciously as he was in the previous seasons, even previously in Season 3. He has accepted that she probably won't be with him by this penultimate episode. So when he takes her on this road trip, it's not really for the purpose of taking her somewhere and fucking her. It's kind of their last goodbye before he's going to move to America. It's funny to think that he finds her hiding in their flat that they share with Harper and some other people that they work with, alone, and she hasn't been out in days, and she's kind of hit rock bottom because she realizes that the fallout from her dead father's firm and all of the NDAs and sexual assault problems that were happening at the firm are now going to fall on her. He kind of recognizes that too, that she's blaming herself for something that's not her fault. And the trip is sort of a way for him to say, hey, let's just get out of here for a while. When we get to the final episode, there's a really interesting moment when Yasmin calls Henry while she's on the road with Robert. She says to the woman who she's arguing with about her father's business that, the woman says, you sound just like your father. And she says, no, I don't, he was weak. Then it cuts to Robert scratching off a lotto. And when Yasmin sees that, she makes the decision to call Henry. Now, thinking about what happens later in the episode, you wonder who's the person that she's perceiving as weak, like her father. Is it Robert taking a chance on a lotto and by and large taking a chance on himself by moving to America? Or is it Henry who's weak enough to supply Yasmin with the life that she had with her father and that she wants to continue to have, but at this point immediately cannot, because in that car in the English countryside at that moment she doesn't have a way out. So then we go to the chateau or palace where Henry is staying, and he's in a deep depressive state after him and Robert had done ayahuasca a few episodes previously. He's weak in those moments. He very much sort of begs Yasmin to stay. Robert is picking up on this whole ploy that Henry has to sort of siphon Yasmin away, and again, he's a bit nonplussed with it because Robert is looking at his future in America. He's kind of tired of the games. when we see Henry next, he comes to Yasmin's room with, a bottle of champagne, and he wants to make her totally comfortable, so he's bought all these clothes already perfectly tailored for her. He's thinking of getting someone to go to London to get her a dress for the dinner they're having the next night. She doesn't buy any of it, because he's sort of reached this quote-unquote spiritual awakening, yet he's still the same guy, And then the real amazing scene, really, of the season, sequence of scenes happens the following day, where Yasmin is wearing the clothes that Henry got for her, which, funny enough, are the same clothes that his uncle, whose palace it is wearing. It's like a very nice English, checkered shirt, polo shirt and briefs, and that's sort of what the uncle is wearing too, so they look similar when she walks into the library to meet him. And the uncle explains to her, I always knew that your father was a predator, and I always knew it wasn't your fault. And they share this moment where it's like the uncle's been watching out for her, or has been aware of her predicament for a long time, because Yasmin does come from one of those English families that have so much influence it doesn't matter what they do or what they don't do, they're going to be successful. And her father used that for all the wrong reasons. And the uncle sees that, and he kind of offers her this olive branch to say, in some ways, I love you, and they share not I love you romantically, but I love you like a daughter. And she's sort of been searching for that since the beginning of the season, when you realize over a series of flashbacks that her father died on this party boat after having sex with one of the stewardesses and in Yasmin's room, and she walked in on it. So there's just a lot of trauma, and they share this hug, Henry's uncle and Yasmin, that's very, very pure, though Yasmin kind of catches herself to realize this is fucking weird, this is another old man, hugging me. And then the uncle says something to the effect of, I'm going to butcher it, but something to the effect of, you would always have a family here. Sort of indicating you have these problems in the press. I'm very influential and can influence the press to go another way. Here's my depressed nephew who's in love with you, upstairs, idling away the hours. If you ever wanted, since you don't have a family anymore, this could become your family. And then what happens is Yasmin sits on the great stairs for a while in between these two paintings of like Queen Victoria and King Charles or whatever, And then she runs up the stairs and she's going to someone's room, and I'm telling myself the whole time, it's going to be Henry. She's going to Henry's room. She's ready to settle down. She goes to Robert's room. And they share an afternoon together that is the most honest. It's the most honest depiction of sex or love on the whole show. At all seasons. And we've seen, other moments with her and Robert. The moment on the treadmill, the kiss they shared just a few episodes earlier when she found out, right before she found out her dad was dead. But this one was different. I think she was taking all of the emotions, the real emotion she shared in that moment with Henry's uncle about, it's not your fault. Her response was to say, yeah, it's not my fault. And I love this man, I love Robert. And I'm finally going to tell him that. And when they make love, they tell that to each other. And it's a pretty sobering moment. It's beautiful, honestly, and relatable. And they go to the dinner that night, and the uncle says to Robert, who's wearing the uncle's suit. Wow, you look great in that, almost as good as I used to look. So the uncle is not comparing himself or thinking about himself in relationship to Henry, his nephew, Jon Snow. He's thinking about himself in relation to Robert, because he is smart enough emotionally to recognize Robert and Yasmin's relationship without it ever being talked about or said. He knows Robert's a man like me that could make a woman feel something real, whereas Henry sort of needs a woman so he can feel. So it's a difference there. And Yasmin and Robert, they share sort of that last, he's really kind of looking at her now. Robert is, I love, kind of confident and with his eyes telling her, I love you. And then Henry gets up, and we see the continuation of a long conversation that we had seen earlier, where Yasmin was telling him, I fucked Robert, I need security, I need a home, and it looks like they're just having a heart-to-heart, or possibly a goodbye. And what it's actually leading to is Henry's announcement, his toast to the fact that him and Yasmin are engaged. And Robert finds out about this in real time. And his reaction, his delayed silence, and then finally applause, because he doesn't want to let go of their secret together. It's pretty masterful. And then the direction was to cut out the rest of the people at the table, and you just saw Yasmin and Robert sitting diagonally from each other. And everyone's been in both of their positions before. That was the genius of the writing and the acting. The direction was amazing to isolate them, but what was said and emoted from the actors was truly incredible. Yasmin, tears in her eyes, looking at this man that she loves, who she has now abandoned. And she says, I'm sorry. And he takes it. And I gotta give it to Harry Lottie. He takes it, he smiles. I understand. It's not, throw up, make a scene, scream and yell. It's what you internalize. And when you love someone, you internalize these things quietly. They stay with you forever. It's harder to take something and find a place within yourself to bury it than to smash it into a million pieces in front of the world. That's what Henry would have done if the roles were reversed. He would have flipped the table and stormed out. Robert isn't like that. Not only is he not like that, he isn't from the same ilk that Henry and Yasmin are from. He's not protected by money. His capital for his new venture into psychedelics in California is backed by Henry's uncle. So he can't say anything except for that loving smile that he's given Yasmin for years now. And I understand. I mean, this is, how many... It's not really ever about the man that Yasmin was with, whether that was Seb in the first season, the stoner boyfriend, or Henry, the nephew of a lord. It was never really about the other people that she would end up with or would ditch him for. It was this unspoken thing between the two of them that was powerful. And when Robert leaves the estate, it's a moment of triumph to leave and say, I'm leaving all of that behind me. And Yasmin is really the one who's going to have to learn how to live locked up inside. You know, we see that later with the same woman who is having sex with her father on the boat, who she employs as an assistant. And when the woman tries to open up to her about, you know, it's not your fault about who your father was, I know this because he did this to me, Yasmin can't accept it. And they hug, and they have a moment where there's some intimacy there emotionally, and then she storms out of the room and she tells the butler, get rid of her, fire her. So Yasmin is headed down a darker path of locking herself up in the castle, you know, and her Prince Charming, it's not even that he was, you know, that white and satin armor. He was her friend. He was somebody that really cared about her, whether or not she had all this money or influence or whatever. And now he's gone. And that last scene, which is a cut back to the first scene of his pitch for the psychedelics, presumably when he gets over to California, it's a scene of making it in life, of making it on your own, away from the noise and the craziness. And, you know, while all this is going on in the countryside between Robert and Yasmin and Henry, back in London, I mean, everything's falling apart. You know, Harper's leaving Leviathan, Pierpoint is imploding after being bought out by the Saudis, Eric's out of a job, Bill Adler's dead, you know, the whole kind of world is coming down. But Robert and Yasmin, they kind of escaped that fire before it really spread, and then she went one way and he went the other. And the time that the writers and the producers and the actors put into separating them and really telling a true end to that story, and then that triumph for Robert to be so confident in himself, you know, 6 months later in California, to stand on his own pitch when the series started with Eric trying to explain to Robert, you're a man, you be a man and be relentless. He does, he figures it out. But he figures it out his way, which is the triumph. He's not doing it Eric's way, he's not doing it Henry's way, he's not doing it Yasmin's way. Robert, you know, it's great to see. I sort of live vicariously through that character a bit, and he did it his way. And, you know, definitely he came out as a hero at the end of the season. And I hope if they bring the show back, you know, there is a moment, just in passing, you know, years later, between Robert and Yasmin. Because it's electric when somebody can see you. And I'd argue that Robert is the only person that can really see Yasmin for who she is and love her like that. And that's why she loves him too.